I want to talk to you today about narcissists, or people who are nice, who act nice, who are actually narcissists, I suppose both on an individual level, but also on a political, larger level. I saw recently that people who engage in virtue signaling and victim signaling, where they keep considering themselves to be victims, are very likely to score highly on one of the dark triad traits. Triad traits. What are those traits, and does that surprise you at all?
It doesn't surprise me. But when you asked me to interview, I went and reviewed the research to make sure I was up to date. And there's actually a lot that's been done in the last 5 years on this area. And there's a lot of published peer-reviewed research that indicates there's a very positive correlation between heavy-handed virtue signaling, exhibitionistic displays of altruism, and, as you just rightly said, the dark triad traits. The dark triad would be narcissism, psychopathy, and Machiavellianism.
What does Machiavellianism mean?
From Machiavelli, who famously said, the end justifies the means. These are people who are very, very goal-orientated, highly manipulative, and very low in compassion.
There sounds like a few people I can think of. But so, and what? Okay, we should also go with what is narcissism.
Narcissism is a trait that all human beings have. We all have latent narcissism, so we're all somewhere on a sliding scale of trait narcissism. And as it gets stronger and stronger, as you slide up the scale, it becomes more and more maladaptive, meaning it does more and more damage to the person who has the trait and more damage to the people around them, until eventually you're looking at a situation, say, low in narcissism, you can cooperate, you can deal with people, but you can be self-interested. That is good. That is healthy. All human beings pass through a phase. Narcissism was largely defined by Freud, not originally by Freud, but he did the most development of it. And he said there's a phase that all infants go through. When you're a toddler, you should develop a healthy narcissistic phase, and then you should mature beyond that phase. Right. And some people never do. And so they're stuck in this child phase, but a very early stage of development. They're stuck at like age 3, age 4. You see little kids age 3, age 4, they start saying no to mummy and daddy, or they grab something and go, it's mine. This is good. This is healthy. They should pass through that. They should then learn to share. They should learn to cooperate, and they should realize when their little friend or their little sister is crying, they're crying the same way that they cry when they're in pain. And that's how you develop, as a human being, empathy and compassion. For some of these people, for some of these children, when they're growing up, because of there's epigenetic factors, for sure, there's a genetic component to this, we know that, but it's largely environmental. Their response to the stress of the environment can be to develop a full-scale psychotic break with reality, where they unconsciously choose to live inside of a fantasy version of reality, where they are the center of the universe. That's narcissistic personality disorder. When I was describing the sliding scale of traits, that isn't. So you can have somebody who's highly narcissistic. They can go to talk therapy once a week for 6 months and come back with better communication skills and a better sense of empathy. I would claim that with narcissistic personality disorder, the full break from reality, therapy won't work. Therapy will only be an environment where they can practice their narcissism, and it can actually make them worse. That's not just my opinion. There's published literature that says that as well. Some types of psychopaths and narcissistic personality disorder, normal, naive, well-intentioned talk therapy will make them worse.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I went to therapy for a while, and it actually did help me become, I don't know if maybe narcissistic's not the right word, but less self-centered in some respects. So maybe I don't have the disorder as such, but I definitely went in, and the therapist told me this as well, that a lot of people go in to talk to him and they start by saying, oh, this person did this, my parents did that, everyone's doing that. And if it's working after 6 to 12 months, often they'll start to say, well, okay, I can't control those things. It's not necessarily their fault, but they can help it. And I can choose how to act about things and take control of things.
Yes.
Would you sort of offer that advice as well?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and to be compassionate and forgiving. We're all human beings. We all have blind spots. We all have a shadow that needs integrating. These are classic Freudian defense mechanisms. It's not all about early childhood. Some of these develop in adolescence, and then in school, at university, in your first jobs, where you learn to offset the responsibility of things that perhaps are yours to hold by projecting them onto other people. There's a lot of defense mechanisms that we all use regularly. A good therapist will teach you that there's a better way of interacting with reality and other human beings than through defense mechanisms, which are fundamentally ego-based, which means they are narcissistic defenses.
It feels sometimes like control as well. Is control involved? I guess I had to feel like, oh, this person isn't behaving the way I wanted them to, so I better advise them how better to act. And if you start doing that to everyone around you, you're trying to control your environment.
It's very much a disease, a mental health issue of control. And in fact, sometimes for certain types of narcissism, it's frequently comorbid with something called obsessive compulsive personality disorder, which is all about perfectionism and control and trying to make external reality fit your ideal of what it should be inside of your head, which if you think about it, that's quite childlike. You're like, no, I want it to be like this, but it isn't. But I want it to be, but it ain't. So the ability to accept that people aren't what we want them to be, the world isn't what we want it to be, that's a sign of maturation, what Jung would have called individuation.
Interesting. So I had OCD as a teenager. It's not bad now. And I think part of that, I don't know, because often we sort of put people in boxes. This person has that, this person. And I think part of developing away from the OCD was the same as what I was saying with the therapist. I started to understand and to actually embrace not being able to control. That was the way to do it. It was like, I'm almost controlling my way of not controlling and just letting be. And that was so nice. And then the OCD sort of fizzled out a little bit.
Yes, it will do. I mean, I want to make clear that there isn't a correlation between OCD and narcissism. OCPD is quite different, but it's rooted in similar defense mechanisms. I just don't want them to. I just don't want to destroy your confidence.
What was the P? The OCP?
The OCPD is personality disorder. So obsessive compulsive personality disorder is different to obsessive compulsive disorder.
Interesting.
So OCPD is an obsession with perfectionism and making the world the way you want it to be, but it isn't unrelated to OCD, obviously, because in OCD, you're engaging in sort of ritualistic, repetitive activities that are external to try and moderate your internal feelings. It's almost a way of dealing with anxiety, depression, emotional dysregulation through an external source. You're like, oh, if I just do this and this and this, everything will be okay. And actually, probably the healthier and more adult way to deal with things is to say it's as good as it gets right now. Just let it be, and whatever happens, you'll cope with it.
Just take a breath.
Yeah, take a breath. Take a breath.
Yeah. It's nice.
Yeah.
That feels nice. I try to do that more. Take a breath and just enjoy breathing.
There's a lovely technique I got from Andrew Huberman. He didn't develop it, but he's espousing it. It's called a physiological breath. So you know when little kids cry, and then when they finish their crying or their tantrum, they go,
yeah.
That's called a physiologic breath. So if you do like 5 repetitions of 2 sharp intakes, 1 long exhale, it actually
does feel good.
Yeah, just 5 repetitions.
I'm concerned about podcast listeners with the sniffing and breathing, but I did listen to a Joe Rogan episode recently with Elon Musk where they ate pizza for about 45 minutes.
Oh God!
Just chewing. Just that for 45 minutes while talking with their mouths full.
Yeah.
And it was only after about 40 minutes that Joe Rogan, the world's most famous podcaster, so he should know a bit about audio and things like that, said, you know what, maybe this isn't nice for our listeners.
There's a specific psychological condition I can't remember right now where it really drives people crazy if they can hear you chewing.
I might have that. I'm sitting there, I'm like on a run as if I was running. I was walking somewhere, listening to that. I'm like, can they please stop eating the pizza? I want to hear what they say, but I'm not interested in the pizza. So yeah, a couple of sniffs and a breathe out, I think is actually all right.
Yes.
I would encourage any listeners to do that now. Yeah. Do you in your life, do you think of either famous people or just in your life, are there many in your mind right now who are narcissists who are hiding it from you?
I mean, certainly when I turn on the TV, or I look in the music industry, or I look at like social media influencers, you'll see a lot of what sometimes refers to as covert narcissism. It's not so easy to detect. It's also sometimes described, or a variation can be pro-social narcissism, where people gather their narcissistic supply by genuinely doing charitable things and actually having benefit in the world, but they're doing it for narcissistic supply. So I didn't say before, and I should have done, when we're talking narcissistic personality disorder, if anybody wants to understand the behavior of a narcissist, they should think of them as a junkie, an addict who needs supply. Narcissistic supply is not just being seen or being heard. It has to come as a form of adulation and congratulations, preferably from an audience, preferably from multiple people. That's pro-social. Communal narcissism is where you're drawing your narcissistic supply by contributing to a community and being a member of a community and saying, hey, I represent the group and this is what I'm doing. I see you nodding your head because I'm sure you can think of a few people.
I'm thinking